and this is a great place to learn about climate change. So this week, I figured we could talk a lot about all sorts of changes, since we're going through a lot of changes right now. With the stay-at-home order being lifted and things starting to reopen, there's a lot that we need to consider and kind of think about the choices we make in the changes that we're going to see in our life. Now, as a Minnesotan, I'm very proud to be from this beautiful state, the state of hockey. But also I'm really proud to be Minnesotan because of how much we love our wild places and our natural resources. So, to talk about climate change, I figured we'd use something that a lot of us know about, hockey, to kind of talk about what is climate change and what that means for our state. So over here, I pulled up some information. And with climate change, it's a very complicated thing. There's a lot of layers to it, and trying to understand all of it at the same time is really, really hard. So what we talk about today is just a little bit of what is going on. Kind of a general thing that most people know about though is temperatures are increasing. So graphs can sometimes be confusing, but when you put it with something you understand, it makes it a little bit easier. So this is a graph from NASA that shows the annual temperature rising over years. Now we can put a line on it, and we can see that it is going up. But more than just a line, I see a hockey stick. So if you were to put your stick on here, we see it's kind of increasing, and then on the blade, that increase goes up really, really fast. And that's where the problem is. It's not the fact that it is going up, which is bad, but it's the rate at which things are warming. Now with that, we could look at another graph, which is CO2 emissions in our atmosphere. So those greenhouse gases, the same kind of thing. We see a graph that starts to go up. So if we put a line, it's going up. But once again, we see our favorite sports equipment, the hockey stick, showing that quick spike in those numbers. Now graphs, again, not for everyone, and that's totally okay. So here at Great Lakes Aquarium, we have a whole exhibit that talks about how climate change kind of interacts with our areas. But not just here in Minnesota, all over the world. These unsalted seas are massive bodies of water, and they highlight that change in a really dramatic way. Here, right outside our windows, we have Lake Superior, one of the largest lakes in the world. And that lake is increasing so much in temperature. It has increased about 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit in the past 30 years, which might seem like a small number, but for all those animals that live out there, that makes a huge, huge difference. And what's happening is actually the sun and those greenhouse gases kind of blocking us like a blanket. I'm gonna get happy here, my hockey stick. Now I got this nice toasty blanket. So I know another thing that Minnesotans like is sitting around a campfire with a blanket, hanging out with your friends, eating some s'mores. So if you were to imagine you're at that campfire with your friends, you're covered up in a blanket or a sleeping bag like I have, and if we were to pretend that the sun is that campfire and we're the earth in this blanket, our greenhouse gases, this is exactly what's happening with our planet. So in my pocket, oh no, I have a marker to kind of show what this means. This is the heat coming off of our campfire, or the sun. It's leaving that really warm source and hitting us, or the earth. Now, the earth will soak up some of that, just like we do in our blanket. Some of it will start to bounce off our bodies. And as it leaves our bodies, it hits that blanket, those greenhouse gases. So in here, I'm already feeling it. I'm getting pretty warm because that heat isn't fully able to leave me. So instead, it hits that blanket or those greenhouse gases, and it comes back, keeping us really warm. Now, just like you, if I'm in this blanket and I'm starting to get really warm, I'm gonna start sweating. I can already feel it on my head. I'm gonna have to get like a water bottle or something. I'm gonna like get a little super, super fast. It shows those signs of change, just like our bodies do in a blanket. So, if we think about in this exhibit, we have some great indicator animals that can teach us a lot about being in these areas that are warming pretty fast. I gotta take this off, this is just too warm. Whew. I can totally imagine what the earth is feeling right now. So here in the Unsalted Seas Gallery, like I said, we have some great animals that can teach us a lot about these warm bodies of water, or warming bodies of water, and those are the sturgeon. So in the Unsalted Seas Gallery, this is the sturgeon touch pool. Hey friends, sit close, I like it. And these animals are cold water fish. They need that really cold water in order to survive, to have a nice, welcoming, easy place to live. The same as like trout or walleye, two fish that Minnesotans definitely like catching and seeing and learning about. But as these bodies of water are warming, their habitat actually is shrinking. So we need to think about if that warm water, because these lakes are warming up really, really fast, and they're not cooling off the way that they should, as seen by how little ice we're seeing on our lakes and ponds. I know as someone who likes to play pond hockey, I don't see the ice that we used to, which is a real big bummer. More of a bummer for the earth, more of an inconvenience for me. But that habitat for those fish is shrinking. So it's less area where they can live in, less areas where they can find their food, all of that. And it's happening on the earth too, or the land, I should say. Of course it's happening on the earth. But we think of the moose, an animal that Minnesotans love trying to see, especially going up to the boundary waters. If you see a moose, it's a really big deal. But warmer temperatures on the land also can influence these terrestrial animals. They get too warm, things like mosquitoes and ticks are increasing, which we don't like either, and they can spread sicknesses way easier. The ranges of these animals are going further and further north, out of Minnesota. Even the plants that we love, oftentimes a lot of those pine trees that we think of, we really imagine our Minnesotan forests, especially here in northern Minnesota, and even some of the trees in southern Minnesota, their range, I know, climate change gets me worked up too. So the range is going north, it's moving, and it's changing these habitats at a rate that is too fast to keep up. So just like we saw in those graphs, that spike going up, that's a really hard spike to follow. That's really hard to adapt in such a short amount of time. So ways that we can think about this, it's harming a lot of things we love here in Minnesota. Whether it's ponds you like to play pond hockey on, or the animals you like going to see, or how you picture yourself at a campfire, there's still some things we can do. So if we were to drop the mitts, so to say, against climate change, things to remember are the 3 R's. So reduce, reuse, recycle, especially that reuse. We want to make sure that we're using the resources we have and seeing if we can use them over and over again, so we're not using new resources constantly. Another kind of R that we should start thinking about throwing in there is renewable energy. Thinking about renewable energy sources, both on a small scale in our homes, but also in a large scale and all over. Other things we can think about is kind of greening our commute. So maybe biking to work or taking public transportation if possible. Even carpooling is a great way to do that. Kind of thinking about our meals, trying to get local foods from local farmers, or even growing your own is a great way to reduce how many emissions it's taking to get your food from one place to another. And even just eating one less meat meal a week can make a huge difference. I'm not saying go totally vegetarian, especially a lot of people like to support those local farmers that are raising the cows and the pigs. That's good. But by eating less meat, it still can do a lot for the environment. And then of course, just starting the conversation, sharing this video, talking to your friends and family, writing to people who make larger decisions in your community. All of those are great ways to get that conversation going and getting the idea out about climate change. Because it's happening right now, and there's a lot that we need to do to make sure that it doesn't get worse than the direction that we're heading in. So, with that, I hope you learned a little bit during this video. Make sure to come back tomorrow, 1 o'clock. We're gonna have another great video talking about changes, but in a slightly different way. And of course, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting Great Lakes Aquarium. We seriously cannot do what we do without the help of our community and the support of our friends and families. This has just been amazing to have the support from you. So thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday. And at least if you're here in Duluth, get out and enjoy some of that sunshine, because it's pretty nice.